The echoes of Elmwood Manor. It was a chilly October evening in 1985 when the call came in. Detective Harlan Brooks sat in his small apartment in Elmwood, Vermont, nursing a black coffee and staring at an old photograph from 1953. The photo showed him as a young cop, fresh from the academy, standing beside Detective Frank Mallory on the docks of Lake Elmwood. Those were the days of Eisenhower, drive-in movies, and secrets buried deep in small-town America. At 68, Harlan had tried to leave the past behind, but cases like this always dragged it back. The phone jangled on the wall. "Brooks here," he answered, his voice gravelly from years of lucky strikes. "Detective, it's Officer Jenkins from the station. We got a bad one at Hargrove Manor. Reginald Hargrove shot dead in his locked study. Family's saying murder, but it looks like suicide. You're the best we have for puzzles like this." Harlan set the photo down. Reginald Hargrove. The name stirred old ashes. Back in the 50s, Hargrove was a rising star in real estate, snapping up farms from cash-strapped veterans. One of those veterans was Joe Riley, a buddy from Harlan's Army days. Joe sold his land cheap to Hargrove, lost everything, and hanged himself in his barn in 1954. Joe's daughter, Mary, Harlan's first love, left town heartbroken. Harlan always suspected Hargrove played dirty, but proofs were slim in those days. No computers, no forensics like today, just gut instinct and shoe leather. "I'll be there in 15, Harlan said, grabbing his fedora and overcoat. He fired up his old Ford LTD, the engine rumbling like an old friend. The radio crackled with Huey Lewis and the news singing "The Power of Love," but Harlan switched it off. He needed silence to think. The manor sat on a hill overlooking the town, a sprawling Victorian pile with gables and turrets that looked like something out of a Gothic novel. Police lights flashed against the autumn leaves as Harlan pulled up the drive. Jenkins met him at the door, a young officer with a mustache that screamed Magnum PI. "Glad you're here, sir. The family's in the parlor." Hargrove was found at 7:50 p.m. Door locked from the inside, key still in the lock. Windows bolted. Gun on the floor beside him, a .38 revolver. One shot to the chest. No note, but the family's insisting it's not suicide. Harlan lit a cigarette, inhaling deeply. Families always do when there's money involved. "Show me the room." The study was a time warp, dark mahogany panels, a massive oak desk piled with papers, bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes on land law and American history. Reginald Hargrove, 75, sat slumped in his high-backed leather chair, his white shirt stained crimson from the bullet wound. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, as if surprised by his own end. The revolver lay inches from his right hand, smoke long gone. Harlan knelt, careful not to touch anything, and noted the absence of powder burns on the shirt. The shot came from at least 2 feet away, impossible for suicide unless he had arms like an orangutan. "Definitely murder," Harlan muttered. "Staged to look self-inflicted. Check the gun for prints, and get the medical examiner here for time of death and autopsy." Jenkins nodded. "Already called. Ballistics too." Harlan scanned the room. No signs of struggle. The door's lock was old but sturdy, key inside as described. The 2 windows were latched tight from the inside, no scratches or forced entry. On the Persian rug, he spotted a small blue wool thread, odd against the red patterns. He pocketed it with a gloved hand for later. The desk held a half-finished letter, a checkbook, and an old photo from the 50s, Hargrove, young and cocky, shaking hands with 2 men over a land deed. One was labeled Silas Thorne, the other Elias Crow. Elias Crow. Another ghost from the past. In 1955, Crow, Hargrove's business partner, disappeared after a heated argument. His boat was found empty on the lake, with a note blaming Hargrove for financial ruin. Presumed suicide, body never recovered. Harlan had been a junior detective on that case, and it always felt wrong. The handwriting on the note seemed too perfect, like it was copied. "Let's talk to the family," Harlan said. The parlor was warm from a roaring fireplace, but the atmosphere was ice-cold. The group sat in a semicircle of antique chairs, faces etched with shock and suspicion. Evelyn Hargrove, the widow, 58, sat erect, her silver hair in a neat bun, dabbing her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She wore a simple black dress, pearls gleaming in the firelight. Next to her was Victor Hargrove, the elder son, 42, a slick real estate mogul with a power tie and a Rolex that could pay Harlan's rent for a year. Leonard Hargrove, 38, the black sheep, lounged with a rumpled shirt and a sketchpad on his lap, his eyes distant. Clara Hargrove, 35, the daughter, was all Wall Street sharpness in a tailored suit, her nails painted red. Finally, Silas Thorne, 80, Hargrove's old partner, hunched over a cane, his face a web of wrinkles under thick glasses. "Folks," Harlan began, removing his hat, "I'm Detective Harlan Brooks. I know this is a hard time, but I need to ask questions. Mr. Hargrove was found in a locked room with no apparent way in or out. Who heard the shot first?" Evelyn spoke, her voice steady but soft. "We all did, Detective. We were in the dining room finishing dinner. Reginald excused himself at 7:30 to handle some work. At 7:45, the gunshot rang out. We rushed to the study, but the door was locked. Victor broke it down with his shoulder." Victor nodded, rubbing his arm. "Took 2 tries. Dad was already gone, blood everywhere." Harlan pulled out a notepad. "Any idea why he'd kill himself or who might want him dead?" A murmur ran through the room. Leonard snorted. "Dad had enemies. Business is cutthroat." Clara shot him a look. "Don't start, Len. Dad was changing the wool. He called us all here for a meeting." Silas Thorne cleared his throat, his voice like rustling leaves. "Reginald and I went way back to the 50s. We built the company after the war, flipping properties with GI Bill loans. Some people got hurt, lost farms, homes. Resentments linger." Harlan's mind flashed to Joe Riley. "Anyone specific?" Silas shrugged. "Elias Crow comes to mind. Our partner. He accused Reginald of fraud, then vanished in '55. Some say Reginald drove him to it." Harlan noted the name. "Anyone else in the house tonight, staff?" Evelyn shook her head. "The cook and butler left at 6 p.m. It's just us." "All right," Harlan said. "I'll need to speak to each of you privately. Let's start with you, Mrs. Hargrove, in the library if you don't mind." The library was adjacent, shelves sagging with books. Evelyn sat, composing herself. "We've been married 25 years, Detective. Reginald was a good provider, but the past weighed on him. Lately, he was agitated. He received an anonymous letter last week, threatening to expose a secret from 1954. Harlan leaned forward. "What secret?" "A land deal. He bought a farm from a veteran named Joe Riley for a low price. Riley committed suicide shortly after. Reginald always felt guilty, said it was the cost of business in those boom years. But the letter hinted at fraud. Harlan's heart skipped. "Do you have the letter?" He kept it in his desk drawer. "Your movements tonight." "I was at the table pouring coffee when the shot came. We all ran together." "Any marital troubles, affairs?" Evelyn flushed. "No." Reginald was loyal. But he was distant lately, talking about making amends for old sins. Harlan thanked her and called Victor next. They sat at the dining table, remnants of dinner still there: roast beef, potatoes, wine glasses. "Dad and I talked business this afternoon," Victor said, lighting a cigar. "The company's struggling with high interest rates. Reagan's policies are hitting real estate hard. He wanted to sell assets I built up." "Argue about it?" Victor exhaled smoke. "Yeah," voices raised. "But I didn't kill him." Harlan noticed Victor's blue wool sweater, the same shade as the thread. "Nice sweater." "Wool. Cashmere blend." "Why?" "Just admiring." "Alibi." "Same as Mom's." At the table. Leonard was next, in the kitchen. He paced, smoking a Marlboro. "Dad hated my career. Called my paintings hippie crap. Said he'd cut me from the wool if I didn't get a real job. We fought this morning. Bad enough to kill." Leonard laughed bitterly. "I wished him dead sometimes, but no." "Saw anyone near the study before dinner?" "Silas. He arrived early, went to see Dad alone." Clara followed, poised and cool. "Dad trusted me with finances. I handle the New York office. He mentioned suspicions someone forging old deeds from the 50s to claim properties." "Who?" "Possibly Silas. They had a fallout over money years ago." "Alibi." At the table, like everyone. Finally, Silas in the sunroom. "I came uninvited, but Reginald phoned me 2 days ago. Said old ghosts were back, someone claiming to be Elias Crow, demanding money." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "Crow dead 30 years. Or not?" Reginald thought he faked his death to escape debts. The voice on the phone knew details only Elias would. "Your relationship with Hargrove?" "Partners turned rivals. I left the company in '60, but no hard feelings until now." Harlan stepped outside for air, lighting another cigarette. The moon lit the grounds, and he wandered to the garden. Memories flooded. 1954, Joe's farm. Harlan had visited Joe, saw the despair in his eyes. "Hargrove tricked me," Joe had said. "Promised fair price, then lowballed with legal mumbo-jumbo. Now I'm broke." 2 weeks later, Joe was dead. Harlan investigated, but Hargrove's lawyers stonewalled. Mary left for California, breaking Harlan's heart. A rustle in the bushes. Harlan drew his .38, thumbing the hammer. "Come out." Jenkins emerged, hands up. "Whoa, sir." Found footprints outside the study window. Size 10, fresh mud. And a wire scrap near the frame. Harlan examined. The footprint matched Silas's boots. The wire thin, bent. "Interesting," Harlan said. "Check the window latch again." Inside, the latch was loose, with a small gap in the frame enough to insert wire from outside to flip it. A piece fell into place. He retrieved the letter from the desk. "Your sins of 1954 will be exposed. Pay 100,000 or die. EC." Handwriting neat, almost feminine. Harlan called the station for old files on Crow and Riley. While waiting, he interviewed the staff by phone. The cook confirmed Silas arrived at 6:15, argued loudly with Hargrove in the study. The butler said Evelyn had a spare key to the study, kept in her bedroom. Harlan sent Jenkins to check the spare was missing. The files arrived via a patrol car 80s efficiency. Crow's note from 55, ruined by RH. Can't go on. Handwriting similar to the new letter. But analysis from back then was crude. Ballistics report, the gun was Hargrove's, registered in 1953. One round fired recently, but residue suggested it had been fired before, years ago. Harlan's mind raced to 1955. The argument on the boat, perhaps Hargrove shot at Crow, missed, Crow fell overboard, swam away, faked the note. But who killed Hargrove? He confronted Silas privately. The footprint is yours. You were outside the window. Silas sighed. I walked the grounds after arriving. Needed air. The wire. Not mine. Harlan pressed. You helped Crow escape, didn't you? Silas's eyes widened. How did you know? Guess. Hargrove shot at him, thought he drowned. You hit him, forged the note. Silas nodded. Elias was my brother. He lived in Arizona under a new name, died last year of cancer. Reginald lived with the guilt all these years. Then the letter. Not from Elias. Harlan gathered the family in the parlor. This is murder, staged as suicide to void the insurance or point fingers. The method, the killer shot Hargrove from inside, exited the room, locked the door with the spare key, then slid the original key under the door using a thread pulled from outside. The blue wool thread used to pull the key. But who? Victor asked. The handwriting on the letter matches yours, Clara. You forged it to scare him into changing the will in your favor. Clara paled. No. Dad asked me to write a sample for comparison. Lie. Perhaps, Harlan said. But the spare key was in Evelyn's room. You had access. Evelyn gasped. I did not. Leonard jumped up. It's Victor, he has debts from bad deals. I saw him with Dad's gun last week, cleaning it. Victor snarled. You liar. You're the one broke from your art scam. Clara pointed at Silas. You hated Dad for Elias. Silas chuckled. At my age I couldn't climb a stair, let alone orchestrate this. Harlan hushed them. The gun was fired in the 50s, perhaps at Crow. Hargrove kept it as a reminder of his crime. The killer knew that, used it to link the past. He paused, the room tense. The killer is Evelyn. Evelyn stood, shocked. How dare you? The blue thread is from your knitting basket wool yarn. You wrote the letter, using old knowledge of the Riley deal. But why? Tears streamed. Because I am Mary Riley. The room gasped. Harlan nodded. You changed your name, moved back in 1960, married Hargrove for revenge. Waited years, raised a family, but the hate won. You went to the study during dinner break, argued, shot him with his own gun. Exited, locked with spare, slid key under door with the thread. The shot we heard was the fatal one, but you timed it perfect. But we were all at the table. Victor protested. You slipped away for powder room, Harlan said. Cook saw you head toward the study. Evelyn broke down. He ruined my father. I loved him once, but the hate won. He confessed everything, the shot at Crow, the cover-up. I couldn't let him live with it anymore. The twist, but Harlan had a final piece. Wait. The footprint and wire. Evelyn smiled sadly. I opened the window briefly for air during the argument. Closed it, but used the wire to make sure the latch set tight from inside. The footprint was a decoy. I wore Silas's boots from the mudroom. Harlan cuffed her gently. I'm sorry, Mary. But justice is justice. As Jenkins led her away, the family stunned, Harlan stepped outside, lighting one last cigarette. The past had caught up, but so had the truth. Driving home under the stars, he wondered if the 80s would ever escape the shadow of the 50s. Back at the station, Harlan couldn't shake a nagging doubt. The wire, the footprint too neat, like a stage set. He poured another coffee, the station's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The files on his desk held more than he'd expected. Joe Riley's case from 1954 wasn't just a suicide. There were rumors of coercion, a forged deed. Hargrove's wealth came at a cost, and the town whispered about it for years. Harlan called an old colleague, Bill Carson, now retired in Boston. The line crackled with the weight of years. Harlan, you still chasing ghosts? Bill chuckled. Maybe. Remember Frank Mallory, my old mentor? Did he ever mention the Riley case or Elias Crow? A pause. Mallory was dirty, Harlan. Took cash to look the other way. Word was Hargrove paid him to bury the Riley investigation and the Crow disappearance. No proof, though Mallory died in '70, took his secrets with him. Harlan hung up, his gut twisting. Mallory had mentored him, taught him the ropes, but now the pieces fit differently. Had Mallory covered for Hargrove? Was the Crow case a setup? The next morning, Harlan drove to Lake Elmwood, where Crow's boat was found in '55. The dock was crumbling, overgrown with weeds, but the water was still, reflecting the gray sky. Harlan closed his eyes, picturing that day in 1955. He'd been 28, eager, following Mallory's lead. The boat bobbed empty, a bottle with a note inside, ruined by RH. Can't go on. No fingerprints, no blood. Mallory called it suicide and closed the case in a week. Harlan walked the shore, kicking at stones. Something glinted in the mud. An old pocket knife, rusted but with initials, E.C. Elias Crow. A long shot, but he bagged it for evidence. Back at the manor, now empty save for police tape, Harlan searched the study again. In a locked drawer key hidden under a false bottom he found letters from Mallory to Hargrove, dated 1955. Case closed. Payment received. 10,000 blackmail. Hargrove thought he'd killed Crow, and Mallory milked him for it. But Evelyn's confession didn't fit perfectly. If she was Mary Riley, why sign the letter EC? Why the elaborate decoy with Silas's boots? Harlan's instincts screamed there was more. He visited Silas at his cottage on the edge of town. The old man answered, leaning on his cane, eyes sharp despite his age. Detective, you've got your killer. Why bother me? Elias Crow. You said he was your brother, died in Arizona. I need proof. Silas produced a death certificate. Ed Carter, alias, died 1984, lung cancer. That's Elias. I helped him start over after he swam ashore that night. Harlan studied the paper. It checked out, but something was off. The letter E.C. If not Elias, who? Silas shrugged. Ask Evelyn. Harlan drove back to the station, pulling Victor, Leonard, and Clara in for more questions. Victor admitted to gambling debts in Atlantic City, 50,000 owed to unsavory types. Leonard confessed to siphoning company funds for his art studio, desperate to prove himself. Clara revealed a secret lover in New York, a reason she wanted her share of the inheritance to break free. Each had motive, but none felt right for the kill. The ballistics report deepened the mystery. The .38 had a partial print, not Hargrove's, not Evelyn's. Compared to old files, it matched Frank Mallory's. Impossible, Mallory was dead. Had Hargrove kept the gun as a memento, passed from Mallory, or was it planted? Harlan's mind spun. The 50s cases Riley, Crow were linked to Hargrove's guilt. But the murder was too clever, too theatrical. Like something from an Agatha Christie novel Mary Riley might read, plotting her revenge. He returned to the Manor's basement, searching for the dumbwaiter, an old feature in houses like this, used to send food to upper floors. He found it behind a panel in the kitchen, narrow but big enough for a small person. Dust disturbed, fresh scratches on the wood. Someone used it recently. Leonard was slim, an artist with mechanical skills, rigging sculptures with pulleys and wires. Could he have climbed up, shot Hargrove, and escaped downstairs? But the door was locked, key inside. Unless the lock was a lie. Victor claimed he broke the door down, but what if it was unlocked, and they staged it to confuse the timeline? Harlan gathered the family one last time in the parlor, the fireplace cold now. "I got it wrong," he said. Evelyn confessed, "but she's covering for someone." "The killer is among you still." Gasps. Victor stood. "This is insane." Harlan paced. "The dumbwaiter was used. Someone slipped into the study, shot Hargrove, and escaped to the basement. The shot at 7:45 was a blank fired from a second gun or a recording to set the time. The real shot was earlier, body still warm when we arrived." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "The letter S handwriting, Clara, it's yours. You forged it, but not to scare him. To frame Evelyn." Clara laughed nervously. "Ridiculous." "No. You wanted the inheritance, knew Dad was cutting you out for your reckless deals in New York. But you didn't act alone." Harlan turned to Leonard. "You rigged the dumbwaiter, used your art skills to make it silent. You fired the blank later to fool us." Leonard paled. "No way." "And Victor," Harlan continued, "you lied about the door. It was unlocked, you just pretended to break it. You're in debt, needed the money fast." Victor clenched his fists. "You can't prove it." "But Silas," Harlan said, "you're the key. You're not Silas Thorne. You're Elias Crow." The room froze. Silas's cane trembled. "Preposterous. I checked your prints from the cottage, matched Crow's from old files. You faked your death in '55, got surgery in Mexico, came back as Thorne to get close to Hargrove. You planned this for years. The letter was yours, the motive revenge for him ruining you. You shot him through the dumbwaiter, used the wire to latch the window as a red herring, wore your own boots to leave the footprint, knowing we suspect the real Silas." Silas Elias smiled faintly. "Clever, detective. Reginald shot at me on that boat, left me for dead. I rebuilt my life, but the hate never faded. I waited, befriended him, and struck when he was weak." "And the family?" Harlan asked. "They didn't know. I worked alone. The letter was to torment him, make him confess his sins before I ended it." Harlan nodded. "The thread was a mistake, your scarf, not Evelyn's yarn. You pulled the key under the door to lock it after escaping." Elias sighed. "A loose end." Harlan cuffed him, the family stunned into silence. Evelyn wasn't Mary Riley, just a grieving widow caught in the crossfire of old grudges. The real Mary was long gone, maybe dead, maybe alive in California. Harlan would never know. As Jenkins took Elias away, Harlan stood on the Manor's porch, the night air sharp. He lit a final cigarette, watching the smoke curl toward the stars. The 50s were a shadow he couldn't shake. Deals, betrayals, lives broken for profit. Hargrove's death closed a chapter, but the book of Elmwood's secrets stayed open. Driving home, Springsteen's My Hometown played softly on the radio. Harlan didn't turn it off this time. He let the music carry him back, to a time when justice seemed simpler, but was just as elusive.